The Bible and Jesus Christ have been proven over and over and over again, not just spiritually, but through archaeology, historical records, manuscript evidence, science, and fulfilled prophecy. We're not talking about blind faith here. We're talking about solid, verifiable facts that have convinced even the most skeptical minds. Let's walk through it all. First, manuscript evidence. The New Testament is the most well-preserved ancient document in the world. We have over 25,000 handwritten copies, and some of them were written just decades after the events took place. That's extremely rare when it comes to ancient history. Most ancient texts have fewer than 100 surviving copies, and they're usually written hundreds of years after the fact. Yet, nobody questions whether those events are real or if they happened. But we have proof of this one. What we read in the Bible today is almost exactly what was originally written. It hasn't been lost or rewritten over time. Number 2, Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1947, a young shepherd discovered clay jars in a cave. Inside were scrolls dating back to around 200 BC, nearly 1,000 years older than our previous oldest copies of the Old Testament. What did they find? Nearly the entire Old Testament, and it matched the modern Bible almost word for word. One scroll, the book of Isaiah, contains detailed prophecies about Jesus written hundreds of years before his birth. Jesus is not just mentioned in the Bible, he's written about in multiple historical records outside of Christianity. A Roman historian said that Jesus was executed under a Roman leader. A Jewish historian described him as a wise man who was crucified and believed to have risen. Another official recorded that early Christians gathered regularly and sang to him as if he were a god. Even people who didn't believe in Jesus confirmed that he lived, was crucified, and that his followers were fully convinced he had risen. Number 5, the radical rise of the early church. Right after Jesus was crucified, something incredible happened. Thousands of people in the same city where it all took place started claiming that he had risen from the dead. People were shocked. They could not believe it. But there were so many people who witnessed it and swore that it happened. These weren't people looking for attention or power. They were willing to be tortured and killed for what they believed. And not one of them backed down. Why? Because they saw him. They ate with him. They touched his scars. You don't suffer and die for a lie. The resurrection wasn't a legend. It came from people who saw it with their own eyes. Number 6, fulfilled prophecy. Jesus fulfilled hundreds of specific prophecies written long before he was born. Many of these were found in the scrolls uncovered in the 1900s, proving they were not added later. A few examples. He was born in a small town as predicted. His hands and feet were pierced. He was betrayed for an amount of money. He was killed among criminals but buried in a rich man's tomb. He rode in the city on a donkey just days before his death. These weren't lucky guesses. They were detailed and accurate and fulfilled exactly as written. Number 7, scientific support. The Bible describes things that science didn't discover until thousands of years later. It says that water moves through clouds, rivers, and back again. It says the safest day to perform a certain medical procedure is the 8th day, which modern doctors now confirm based on blood clotting. Even the description of Jesus' death lines up with modern medicine. A medical journal said Jesus most likely died from lack of air and blood loss, just as the Bible says. One gospel says blood and water poured out when a spear was used. Today, we know that can happen when fluid builds up around the heart after death. The Bible holds up under science. It gets the spiritual details right and the physical ones too. Over 300 ancient cultures, from native tribes to early civilizations in Asia and the Middle East, have stories of a massive global flood. They all describe a good man who was warned, built a boat, brought animals aboard, and survived while the world was wiped out. Sound familiar? That's because it really happened. Just like the Bible says, Noah and his family were saved, and through them, humanity and animals survived. The Bible isn't just a story. The whole world remembers it. Other religions may have some good teachings, but none of them have the kind of evidence that Christianity has. Christianity has the most ancient writings, the most support from archaeology, the most fulfilled predictions, and the boldest claim in history that Jesus rose from the dead, backed by people who saw it and died for it. Other religions are based on ideas, visions, or rule-based systems. Christianity says something totally different. God came to us in human form and proved his love by dying for us and rising again. Christianity doesn't ask you to believe blindly. It invites you to believe boldly because the evidence is overwhelming. Other religions say, do enough good, follow the rules, and maybe you'll reach God. Christianity says God saw you couldn't reach him, so he came to you, took your place, and rose again to prove it. If that's not love, I don't know what is. It's not just hope, that's truth backed by history, science, and real events.